Who here has gone through some pretty rough times? Pretty dark times? All of us have. We've all gone through things that have challenged us, things that have made us even doubt ourselves at times. And we look at Bill Gates, his rules for life. Rule number 1, life is hard. Get used to it. Rule number 1. When we look back on some of our darkest moments, some of our times when we struggled the most, often it's difficult for us to look at those times because the way that it makes us feel, the emotion that it brings out. But aren't these times the times that we see the most growth in ourselves? When we look at when we struggled, when we make it to the light, it only feels good because we've gone through that struggle. It only feels good because we've gone through all these things that have made us overcome whatever it was that we were struggling because of. Now there's this story that I want to share with all of you. The story of a boy. He's 5 years old, and it's Thanksgiving. Now most people would be eating dinner at this time and sharing food with all of their loved ones. But this boy, he was the oldest of 5 children, and his parents were fighting, screaming at one another. There was clearly some serious conflict going on, and he didn't know what to do. He was just trying to take care of his siblings and try to keep everybody calm and cool. And they are screaming at each other. It's hard. He's such a young boy, and yet he's acting almost like the parent to these little kids. But it struck a miracle. There's a knock on the door. And he knows that his parents aren't going to answer it. So he goes to the door, he opens it up, and what he sees is this huge man. And all he can remember is seeing with a big box full of food. He was like, this is a miracle. And beside the man was a pot of an uncooked turkey, and he thought to himself, oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to tell Dad it's all going to be okay. There's food here. So he runs over to his dad and he says, Dad, there's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door. He says, you go get it. He says, no, Dad, you gotta come. And his dad, screaming, says one last foul remark, and he comes to the door. And he greets this man. He's staring at him with eyes of anger. And he says to the man, we don't take charity. And he tries to slam the door. And the man puts his shoulder and he says, look, I'm not trying to give you charity. We all go through hard times. All of us. Allow yourself to feed your family and enjoy this meal. And he looks at him again and he says, we don't take charity. He tries to slam the door, and this time the man puts his foot and his shoulder and he says, look. And he looks at the little boy who's standing there. And he says to him, don't let your ego get in the way of your family. This caused this intense situation between the two men. The father is just looking at the man. He takes the box, puts it on the ground, shuts the door, doesn't even say thank you, does nothing. This young boy is confused. What just happened? This was what we were asking God for. Yet my dad, he shows no gratitude whatsoever. And as they're eating the food, this boy, he's putting the food in his mouth, but he doesn't even know if he can smile. Because if he smiles, his dad's just going to get angry. So the evening goes on, and as this boy became a grown-up, he looked back on the situation, he realized that all of us are making decisions at all times. We're making a decision of, what does this mean? And for the father thought, well, this means that I can't provide for my family. And how does this make us act? Well, he acted as though he wasn't a capable father. And shortly after, he ended up leaving that family. But the young boy, what did he feel that meant? He felt that meant strangers care. That was what he took from it. At the age of 17 years old, he said, strangers cared about me, so I'm going to care about strangers. At 17 years old, he saved up a few $100s, basically all the money that he could get together in a couple of months working a minimum wage job. and he had enough money to feed 2 families. And so he went to one of the local food banks and he said, which family is struggling the most? Which family can I show up and provide some food for, just so that they can enjoy Thanksgiving? And they said, well, here are 2 families. And they said, they're of Spanish culture, so just know that if you're going to knock on the door, they might not speak English. He said, okay. So we got all this food together. He got turkeys, squash, mashed potatoes, all this beautiful food. And he said, I don't want to be taking all of the respect for this. I want to just be the delivery guy. So I'm just going to put on a hat and make it look like I'm the delivery guy. So he has this van and he shows up and he knocks on the door. And the lady, just this young Spanish lady, she opens the door and she looks and she's got these wide eyes thinking, what is this man doing here? And he pulls this massive box of food that has a card on it. And the card is written, this is for you. I know that you've experienced hard times. And when you have the ability to provide this for somebody else, maybe you do that. And on the reverse, it's the same thing in Spanish. So he gives her this box, and she just starts bawling her eyes out. And he didn't know that 1 month before, her husband had left that family with 5 kids. Opens the door wide. One kid hits him in one leg. One kid hits him in the other, hugging. They smelled the food. When they saw the apple pie, it was over. That was it. And he gave all this food, and he's like, no, I'm just the delivery guy. She had no idea what he was saying. She just said, no. Gift from God. Gift from God. Those were the English words that she could put together. And so this man, he still had one more family that he had to deliver to. He went back to his van, and he sat down in his seat, and he just began to cry. And he had this emotional outpour, and he didn't understand it. He didn't understand, why am I crying so much, uncontrollably, all these tears just flowing out. And it was in that moment, that he realized that his worst day in his life now become his best day. And so when we look back on the toughest times that we've been through, there are things that we can pull from those events, from those situations. We're able to look back on those moments and say, how did that make me grow? Because they did. Sometimes we may not know it. Sometimes it may not be obvious, but they made us grow. So whenever there's a time of struggle that we're facing, just know, somewhere down the road, somewhere, we're going to be able to look back on those moments and say, wow, I don't know where I would be right now if I didn't have to go through that. And just look back on those moments and say, these are serving a purpose in my life. Maybe you'll be able to look back and see how your worst day became your best. Thank you.